Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here and seeing so many people after 2 years break, finally meeting people in person. Thank you very much for joining our session when we will mention and we will tell you about our story to PCI SLC journey, which was the first one in Europe. My name is Kris Olejniczak. I'm a director at EMEA at Online Business Systems, and I'm here together with Michał Głuchowski, who is a managing director from APDU. We will tell you how we reached to where we reached. When we were thinking about our agenda for today, it was very difficult to squeeze everything what we did in the last almost a year in 20 minutes. So if you have any more questions or follow-ups, we are here and we are more than happy to answer anything that you will have, any questions or issues that you might have or you would like to discuss. But when we are thinking what would be the most beneficial to you, we wanted to divide this to 3 to 4 points. First of all, we will make a short introduction. Who is APDU and why? What was the rationale of doing PCI SLC? We will tell you about how we approached the project and the entire process, what were our challenges and how we overcame them. And last but not least, we have 7 takeaways that we think would be interesting and beneficial to everyone. As I mentioned before, this is our story and our journey. When we were doing other assessments for other clients, after that engagement, we were doing things a little bit different, but that was foundation for our knowledge. So Michał, how about APDU? Why you decided, guys, to do that?
Yeah, okay. I think I owe you guys a short explanation what APDU is, just to give you a context and background for why we are really standing here. So apart from what some of you may know, APDU, Application Protocol Data Unit, so something defined in ISO 7816 standard years ago as a way how to communicate to the smart card. APDU is a company, so it's a software vendor that is almost entirely focused on customers from financial services sector. I mean, almost, because we do work also with some transit authorities, PTOs, integrators, because we provide open loop ticketing solutions, so which are kind of payments after all. So we basically do a lot of stuff and we deal with sensitive data like all day long, whether this is some component like EMV kernel, some middleware, some payment application for the terminal, or a central system like a switch, or maybe some back office solution that is built into some process on acquiring or PSP side. Customers are using our solutions in their infrastructure, they operate it, and we support them. But to be honest, until this very moment, there was not a single actually certification, validation that could reflect the whole commitment that we have for the security and quality of the products that we deliver. So this is actually pretty encouraging that PCI chose to basically roll out secure software framework standard, both with secure software lifecycle and secure software product validation. We actually did both. Yep. So when we presented that for the meeting here, for the agenda, there was just SLC. But right now we have also been the first globally organization to certify a secure software framework, so validate a product developed under SLC, under this SLC that we're talking about. So you all know why SLC is important, probably because it's been touched for many from many angles. But you know, when we decided to go for it, and we just feel like it makes sense, we just first started and had to select a partner that should support us in that process. And everyone was at the very early stage. Everyone was learning, so it was a bit of, I would say, luck how we selected the partner then. And we started with the Secure Software Framework Assessor listed and by PCI. But to be honest, the standard, even though we had the experience with PADSS, we have the experience with PCI DSS from before, it did not look exactly like it. It's much more thorough, much more process-oriented. And to be honest, we needed some of the support, not just to be assess whether we do it right or wrong, but just to advise us sometimes whether it can be done in a more optimal way. So we had, I would say, we had to do a step back. And after we had selected the initial partner, it did not work out the way we planned. So we came back to the drawing board, and this is where we met Kris, and this is where we started our journey.
As we speak about our journey, the approach that we had, as you can see here, we started with a thorough gap analysis, and it's pretty, as Michał mentioned, PADSS, knowledge of PADSS was helping to some extent. To some extent, it was a major blocker moving forward. When you do any kind of this SSF engagement, you can almost blindly think about the gaps that you will have in organization. That would be related to the threat analysis and threat model. That would be related to a classification of data. There's this concept of sensitive data in SSF framework that is way different than cardholder data. You'll be sticking also to challenges like having a documentation and technical documentation. And let's be honest, all of us, we are engineers and we hate doing documentation. So having this documentation, keeping this up to date is really not what we would like to do. We like creating solutions, creating a code and things like that, but documentation is the things that is after release. Here, no. We need to show that organization is mature enough and is developing this documentation together with application. We also approach our definition of what is documentation. Documented process does not need to have a Word document. It can be a workflow in Jira or Jenkins or any other pipeline tool. And we also made a honest conversation with Michał and with entire team that we would like to not only to tick the boxes, but we would like to leverage that activity and that assessment to rise skills of the entire organization, to create more mature software, and way better to that. This is where we came with the gap analysis, and we left for some period of time, Michał, guys to go through that, and then we started our remediation, where basically together, hand by hand, because we believe that you cannot leave client only alone. You need to be with client, and you need to be with your partner, basically, to move forward towards remediation.
So I wouldn't say it's a bad thing to have gaps. Everyone has some. So it was no, I would say, surprise. It's just the way we had to deal with them. We're a small organization, very, I would say, very senior developers and very senior staff that creates the company. So we have the knowledge. It's not that it's been missing and we had to acquire it somehow. We had to just build it inside our processes for it to be actually usable and for that to be more straightforward. So we had to build a lot more automation. It doesn't mean that when you have a process and it requires somebody to verify information, it does not have to be that he first looks for this information manually, checks it, and gets approval from another person, and it's all a manual process. It can still be automated. So the person on the end is simply doing much less themselves, but it's still a person that decides and is accountable for that. So we had that, I would say, exercise that we've done to build inside the processes, to build in the whole overall project delivery framework that we have. And I think it worked out.
Yeah, and as Michał mentioned about this automation, because we had a chance to work with engineers, and as you can imagine, all IT people are the most lazy people in the world. So we basically don't like creating any manual work. So we try to do everything that we can in the simplest, but also automated way, because also automation helps not only to create a good quality product, but to repeatedly create such a product moving forward. Then when we move to the assessment after this cooperation and being with guys during remediation, knowing organization was pretty interesting thing because we basically revalidated what we saw. We revalidated the entire environment. And it took us about 3.5 days to do SLC assessment on site for that assessment. There was a couple of challenges that we had as it comes to that, because Michał, for example, guys created an implementation guide that used also was not only PADSS implementation guide, but also include quite a lot of things inside about the technical documentation. We had a long conversation. It worked in that case. But for the other client, for example, we split that two documents because they didn't want to share that. In that particular case, how application was sold and license, it was working well. And last but not least was reporting and submission. When you do things for the first time in the world, one of the first time in the world and first in Europe, it's super challenging and it's super exciting. But the challenge that we had is if you type in Google anything, you will get blank pages. So we had a lot of internal conversation how to, from QSA or SSF, Assessor Company Organization, how to report things in a way to be acceptable for PCI Council. What is good enough? What is not good enough? Where are the details, level of details is right? We had quite a lot of rounds going back and forth with other SSF assessor that we have in the company. And finally, on the 2nd of February, we submitted documentation, which about a month and a half after, it was just before end of March, was accepted after one round of QA. And finally, yeah, APDU was listed as a first European SLC developing company. From timeline perspective, because of many reasons, it took 9 months. But if you think that you can be optimistic, try. Yeah, try to be realistic more than optimistic. I mean, I think 9 months when you do a commitment, 6 months, it would be very aggressive. It would be really aggressive, and you need to focus, and you need to involve quite a lot of resources. A very important thing to add here is that Michał really allocated quite a lot of people full-time to complete that job on time. When we think about our major challenges that we have,
it's simple, and the most obvious one when you're doing something in a smaller organization. And to be honest, when I'm speaking small, APDU is just 15 people, right? And 10 of them are the delivery part, so the developers, architects, and QA. So it's really a small organization. So we don't have the resources to qualify some resources just for tasks that are to be done. And we do have to still think about that whatever we do have to be put inside the whole overall project delivery framework, not to, I would say, outweigh it and just make it difficult for everyone to work. Because SLC is not something that you actually validate your, I don't know, product delivery. It's the organization. Maybe part of the organization if you're a bigger structure, but still it's an organizational thing. You don't switch it on and off when you're developing a product. You're just doing that for everything, right? So it had to be lightweight.
Exactly, and the other challenge that we had here was, of course, as I mentioned before, we didn't have a Google to ask. Stack Overflow was also empty as it comes to any questions how the things can be done. So we had a lot of brainstorming sessions over Teams or in Warsaw in head office, where we were thinking, okay, this is topics that we need to discuss. And I think that this is very important also working with clients towards, because what you see here, what we were actually doing, we were actually changing way how organization is working. And to do this in a persistent way is very challenging. And last but not least, it was mentioned also in the previous session, our challenge was knowledge of PADSS. If you think that SLC or SSF in general is just another version of PCI PADSS standard, no, it's not. It's not about only cardholder data, it's also about sensitive data. So we, for example, divided our sensitive data to sensitive payment data, which is basically PAN, SAT, track data, sensitive authentication data, configuration data, all passwords or sensitive keys, credentials, anything like that, and sensitive third-party data, which we get from the client, from acquirers that we need to manage in that way. Knowledge of PADSS was one of the things that I was repeating quite often, is that it's not PADSS, it's just not another version of a PADSS. When we think about takeaways, for anyone who will be facing PCI SSF, PCI SLC, or PCI Software Secure Standard, consider those things. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is our story and our way. I don't think it's the only one, but this is something that you can take and adapt into your organization. As I mentioned before, forget about PADSS. In Men in Black, you've got this memory eraser. So if you can buy that and just click in your organization, that would be really beneficial. PADSS is gone in 2 weeks. PCI SSF will be just a new standard here, much wider, much complex as it comes to the scope of the organization.
Yeah, and when you're selecting your partner that will be assessing your SLC or secure software product, just think about this, that this is a new experience for you. Sometimes it may be quite new experience for the assessor, because they haven't done many projects yet. It might be new experience also for the PCI SSC. So choose wisely. This is important. Try maybe looking for somebody that will also help you in that. Maybe tell you whether this is a good idea or not. Maybe can advise you. So somebody with consulting experience would be advisable. Yeah? So don't think about it just as an assessment, because I'm pretty sure the difference between what you have known as PADSS and Secure Software Framework is huge.
Yeah, we were talking about this schedules. It took us 9 months. If you think that you can do this shorter, yes, it's doable. However, it's very difficult. Again, we still believe that you can be lean and agile, and doing SLC, maturing entire organization with the whole bunch of technology that we have right now in software development area, can basically, you can balance being compliant but also being agile. Agile, many people think that it's chaotic. No, it means structured. And automation is really greatly helping here to build such an organization. Yeah, as I mentioned, those are new programs, so there's not that many resources. There's on PCI website, of course, you can go there, but if you talk about the communities, take a look how many assessors company you have. So this is the volume. It's something new for clients, new for assessors, new for everyone. And it's very different, as I mentioned, in many ways. The concept of sensitive data, so on, threat analysis, documentation, and many items like that.
Yeah, so it's actually, the Secure Software Framework standard does not focus only on what you do with your authentication data. It focuses on how you deal with that, how your development process looks like, whether you have, I would say, visibility and plan for everything, whether you do a feedback of everything that you do, so whether you have policies, processes, procedures, and instructions, and you revise all of that. So it's not really the standard approach that you may know. It's more, I would say, if you look at the maturity level, like there's a CMMI, for instance, standard that may help you understand what is the maturity of the organization. This is something like CMMI level 4 or 5, because you need already to have quantitative, I would say, performance measurement and optimization, so feedback and repairs and changes. So that's the situation. And it really does help your organization after all, because it is better. It is better when you go through it.
We also heard when Michał was listed and APDU was listed, we heard many times the same question, which I don't mind to ask for here, and was pain really worth the gain?
Yes, this is a short answer, but the longer answer is I would still believe that it will come. It will come because our customers that all of them have PCI and DSS certifications, they don't even know what a secure software framework is because it's not enforced yet. So that's the situation. It will evolve, and definitely that's a good path, and I love it. But still, I'm still waiting for I would say, improvement.
Yep. We are here around for entire day today, so if you will have any questions or you would like to know a little bit more, we are here available to you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for being on our session. Yeah, and see you around.
Thank you.
Thank you.